Hello and welcome straight from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris about crafting a Ukraine ceasefire. China declares Beijing won't initiate trade talks with the Trump administration, dubs US tariff hikes as unilateral move, says America should take the initiative. And Iranian Foreign Minister is set to meet Vladimir Putin in Moscow ahead of the second round of Tehran and Washington nuclear talks over the weekend. French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and US Envoy Steve Witkoff at the Élysée Presidential Palace in Paris. European, Ukrainian and US officials are set to discuss Ukraine conflict days after Witkoff again met Russian President Vladimir Putin. The US officials were also due to discuss nuclear talks with Iran during their visit to Paris. Ahead of his meeting, Macron also held a telephonic conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And Zelensky's chief of staff said on Thursday that top Ukrainian officials are in Paris to meet EU and US delegations. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio reached the French capital to meet leaders to discuss a potential full ceasefire, the involvement of international peacekeepers and the development of Ukraine's security framework. This is Rubio's third trip to Europe since becoming the top US diplomat, having already attended the Munich Security Conference and a NATO meeting in February as well as March. US Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff also had talks with French and European diplomats in Paris on Thursday. And separately, French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu will travel to Washington on Thursday to meet US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Keith Kellogg, Donald Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, for talks also dominated by Ukraine, Iran and Gaza. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi landed in Moscow on Thursday, beginning a visit to Russia, during which he is expected to meet President Vladimir Putin. Abbas Araghchi is visiting Russia to consult with Moscow regarding the latest talks between Iran and the United States in Oman. Araghchi will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov and other senior officials during the visit. And the Kremlin said that the Iranian Foreign Minister will have an opportunity to pass along a message from Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Russia, a party to Iran's 2015 nuclear pact, has supported Tehran's right to have a civilian nuclear program. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, that's the IAEA, Rafael Mariano Grossi, warned on Wednesday that Iran is not far off from making its own nuclear weapons. In an interview to French newspaper, Grossi said they have the pieces and one day they could eventually put them together. Grossi is visiting Iran in an attempt to narrow gaps between Tehran and the agency over unresolved issues. The IAEA chief met with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in Tehran on Wednesday ahead of a planned second round of talks between Iran and the United States in Rome on Saturday. Grossi described his meeting with Araghchi as important. He is also expected to meet Mohammad Islami, who heads Iran's nuclear energy agency. US President Donald Trump directly negotiated with the Japanese trade delegation, addressing the ongoing tariffs imposed on global imports. Donald Trump said there had been big progress on negotiating tariffs with Japan. This was on Wednesday after he met an envoy from the key ally and trading partner at the White House. Trump wrote on Truth Social, and I quote, "A great honor to have just met with the Japanese delegation on trade. Big progress," end quote. But Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said that future negotiations won't be easy. His comments have come after Japan failed to secure any immediate relief on US tariffs.
大臣からは日米協議の場で
Minister Akazawa stated at the Japan US talks that the US tariff measures are extremely unacceptable, and after that, explaining Japan's view on the impact on Japanese industry and the expansion of investment and employment in both Japan and the United States. He has strongly requested that the series of tariff measures by the United States be reviewed.
このように述べておられます。
And China's Commerce Ministry on Thursday urged the US to stop exerting excessive pressure on the country, but the two sides remained deadlocked over who should initiate trade talks. The Donald Trump administration has been ramping up pressure on China by raising import tariffs on Chinese goods in recent months. Beijing has also imposed retaliatory tariffs on US goods instead of any negotiations. It further said that the ministry has maintained working-level communication with its US counterparts and that China is open to economic and trade consultations with the US.
The unilateral tariff increase was entirely initiated by the United States, and the party who initiates it must resolve it. We urge the US to immediately stop extreme pressure, coercion, and blackmail and resolve differences with China through equal dialogue on the basis of mutual respect.
President Trump's tariffs are upending world trade and causing unprecedented upheaval in the financial and diplomatic sectors, with close allies questioning the reliability of the US. Following a tariff of up to 245% on Chinese goods, which the White House had to issue a clarification about later, China expressed willingness to negotiate but demanded the US cease its aggressive tactics. A report.
US President Trump's tariffs have upended the global markets in an unprecedented way. US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said on Wednesday that unemployment and inflation will likely go north as tariffs' effect become more pronounced. The comments riled already battered markets, adding to uncertainty prevailing in the financial world. But that is not the only aspect which has faced challenges due to uncertainties related to tariffs. The tariffs have forced many nations to scramble their trade representatives to Washington for a possible trade deal that will circumvent tariffs. Much was expected from the US-Japan talks. Trump inserted himself directly into trade talks with Japanese officials. Trump attended the meeting alongside Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, top economic advisors, and later posted on social media that there had been big progress in the talks. And while Tokyo's envoy Ryoshi Akazawa also said that Japan want the deal to be stuck as soon as possible.
Meetings with Japan are a priority. When Trump says there are 70 or 100 countries in line for a meeting, there's no way the president can attend all of them. So the talks with Japan are a priority. I explained Japan's position regarding the impact on Japanese investment and hiring, both in Japan and in the United States, and strongly requested that the US review its series of tariff measures. My understanding is that the US is looking to make a deal in the next 90 days.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni headed to the White House on Thursday to discuss tariffs imposed on the European Union with Trump, while Bessent has invited South Korea's finance minister to Washington for talks next week. Meanwhile, Beijing on Thursday said that if Washington continues to play the tariff numbers game, China will pay no attention to it. Chinese President Xi reached Cambodia on the final leg of his Southeast Asia tour aimed at strengthening trade alliances. The fissures are apparently widening back home too. California's Governor and Attorney General sued President Donald Trump on Wednesday to try to stop his flurry of tariffs, accusing the president of taking unlawful action to escalate a global trade war. The lawsuit is the largest legal challenge yet to Trump's trade policies. The move marks the strongest pushback yet against a tariff rollout that has left business across the U.S. fretting about uncertainty. For now, the markets remain on tenterhooks, not knowing which way the tariff tempest will blow in the next few days or weeks. Anamika Pandey's report for DD India.
Taiwanese chip-making titan TSMC reported Thursday a surge in net profit for the first quarter after a series of U.S. tariffs on the critical technology impacting its demand outlook. It also said that it has not detected any change in customer behavior since the announcement of U.S. tariffs on global trade partners. TSMC announced plans for a $100 billion investment with Trump at the White House last month, on top of $65 billion pledged for 3 plants in the state of Arizona, one of which is up and running. TSMC further added that its net profit for the first 3 months of 2025 rose 60.3% from a year ago to New Taiwan $361.5 billion. Net revenue for the quarter soared nearly 42% to New Taiwan $839.25 billion year-on-year, also beating forecasts. Figures released by the company last week showed. Futures tied to the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ regained some ground on Thursday on the final trading day of the week. Ahead of the long weekend, all 3 major Wall Street indices are on track for weekly losses, with the S&P 500 on pace to lose about 1.6%. On Wednesday, U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell warned that Trump's tariff policies risked pushing inflation higher while weakening economic growth.
Today's news, obviously, with some of the tariffs around some tech names and some basically reducing some trade around some semiconductor names, I think is what really we're seeing from a market reaction. We think you're going to continue to see tech on the downdraft just because a lot of this tariff noise is going to affect them specifically, because now we're focused on China. Before, when it was a worldwide tariff issue, there's a lot of companies that had some kind of skin in the game, if you will. With China, a lot of it's tech. And so I think a lot of the tech money is going to be pulling out, going to other places.
And Trump, on his part, criticized Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell on Thursday for not lowering interest rates, calling him always too late and wrong. Posting on Truth Social platform, Trump said that Powell's termination is coming just at the right time. Powell warned on Wednesday that Trump's sweeping tariffs on virtually every trade partner could put the Fed in the unenviable position of having to choose between tackling inflation and unemployment. Trump has urged Powell to cut interest rates, but the U.S. Central Bank has kept the rate steady at 4.25 to 4.5% through 2025 so far. And in a surprise move, on Wednesday, U.S. President Trump directly negotiated with the Japanese trade delegation, addressing the ongoing tariffs imposed on global imports. The meeting marked a significant step in trade discussions between the 2 nations. Led by Japan's Economic Revitalization Minister Ryoshi Akazawa, the delegation met with President Trump to explore solutions and foster mutual understanding on trade issues. Japan is among the first countries to formally initiate negotiations with the U.S., signaling a proactive approach to resolving trade challenges and strengthening bilateral relations. International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said on Thursday that rising trade tensions and sweeping shifts in the global trading system will trigger downward revisions of the IMF's economic forecasts, but no global recession is expected. Georgieva said countries' economies were being tested by a reboot of the global trading system, sparked in recent months by U.S. tariffs and retaliation by China and the European Union. That has unleashed off-the-charts uncertainty in trade policy and extreme volatility in financial markets. The International Monetary Fund in January forecast global growth of 3.3% in 2025, and again the same data was put out for 2026. It will release an updated World Economic Outlook on Tuesday. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world. 4 people have died and 7 others are missing off a western Philippine province after MV Honghai 16, a dredging vessel carrying 25 people, capsized 2 days ago. The incident was reported by the Philippine Coast Guard. On the 17th of April, 6 Filipinos and 8 Chinese nationals had been rescued. Catholics at Vatican City's St. Peter's Basilica mark a quiet start to Easter as Pope Francis remains ill. The Vatican has delegated senior cardinals to lead each of the celebrations in the Pope's place. Pope Francis, aged 88, is undergoing recovery from severe pneumonia. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Delegates of the Bora community meet Prime Minister Modi to thank him for the changes in the Waqf Act fulfilling a long-standing demand. India's Ministry of External Affairs says Kailash Mansarovar Yatra will be resumed this year itself.
Bharat welcomes the world to a new era of creativity. Waves World Audio-Visual and Entertainment Summit as Mumbai hosts the global stage for creativity and innovation. Connecting creators through Creatosphere, where emerging voices rise. Wave Accelerator, where ideas meet global investors. Waves Bazaar, a global marketplace for content. Connecting countries through global media dialogue and industry roundtable. Bharat Pavilion, capturing India's rich history of storytelling.
वेव्स के रूप में भारत एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म बनाने जा रहा है जिसमें दुनिया के एंटरटेनमेंट लैंडस्केप पर उसको बदलने की क्षमता होगी.
From culturals to cinema, gaming to animation, fueling the next wave of entertainment. Connecting creators, connecting countries. Waves 2025.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. A delegation of the Dawoodi Bohra community met Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday. During the meeting, representatives of the Bohra community thanked Prime Minister Modi for the Waqf Amendment Act. They said this act was their long-standing demand, which has now been fulfilled. Along with this, they conveyed their appreciation and reaffirmed their faith in the Prime Minister's inclusive vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. India and China are making progress in resuming direct air services, and technical teams from both the sides are working out the operational details. Briefing the media on Thursday, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said that with both countries agreeing in principle to restart flights, operational modalities to resume direct air services soon are being worked out.
In principle, both countries have agreed that flight operations will resume. The technical teams on both sides are looking into the arrangement, the technical arrangements for the flight services to resume. The two civil aviation authorities have met and are discussing the relevant modalities, including the updated framework. So once this updated framework, which is a technical level discussion, arrangements between the civil aviation authorities of both sides, we will see this direct flight connectivity and air services connectivity between both countries restored.
The MEA spokesperson also informed that Mansarovar Yatra may soon resume as well.
The Yatra will happen this year, and we are making preparations, and more information would be put out for the public soon.
And the MEA also hit out at Pakistan for distancing itself from 26/11 terror attacks accused Tahawwur Hussain Rana, recently handed over by the US to India, saying no matter how hard it tries, its image as the epicenter of global terrorism won't change.
Pakistan may try very hard, but its reputation as the epicenter of global terrorism will not diminish. The extradition of Rana is a reminder yet again to Pakistan that it needs to act to bring to justice other perpetrators of Mumbai terror attacks, whom it continues to shield.
India's Home Minister Amit Shah addressed a national conference at the Shantivan campus of the Brahma Kumaris Institute in Mount Abu, Rajasthan. Speaking on the theme self-empowerment through inner awakening of the Security Service Division, the minister lauded the Brahma Kumaris for spreading the message of sacrifice and penance in society.
मैं आज यहाँ आया हूँ तब दीदी रतन मोहिनी जी को मनपूर्वक श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित करना चाहता हूं, और राजयोगिनी मोहिनी दीदी को भी बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं कि आंदोलन को, इस सद्वृत्ति की ओर समाज को ले जाने के आंदोलन को इतनी ही ऊर्जा और इतनी ही तत्परता के साथ आप आगे बढ़ाएगी। ब्रह्मा कुमारीज ने अपने त्याग, तपस्या और तेज से दुनिया भर में सादगी, संयम और सहयोग का एक अद्भुत वातावरण खड़ा करने का काम किया है।
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman participated in the grand celebrations of the Bombay Stock Exchange on Thursday in Mumbai, marking the historic milestone of 150 years of the institution's journey in empowering India's financial aspirations and contributing to the nation's economic development. As part of the ceremony, the FM unveiled a special 150 rupees commemorative coin, a fitting tribute to the stock exchange's illustrious legacy and its steadfast commitment to driving progress and innovation in the financial sector. In her address, the FM lauded the BSE's technological advancements and its vital role in India's economic development.
I was surprised to hear, and I'm very proud to note, that the BSE has a capacity to process 1,500 crore orders per day and to manage even peaks of 14 lakh orders in a second. Institution, 150-year-old institution, has utilized technology to transform itself so much that the numbers match India's population scale, and for the world, which is advanced, which has seen all the stock market booms and busts, today looks up to the Indian scaling that the BSE has achieved as remarkable.
And the South Indian state of Kerala is observing Maundy Thursday, commemorating the Last Supper of Jesus Christ. Believers across denominations in Kerala attended special prayers and services as part of the Holy Week, which includes Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and culminates with Easter Sunday. In Goa, the faithful gathered at the historic Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception Church in Panjim to mark Maundy Thursday with traditional rituals. The observance featured the celebration of the Holy Eucharist and the symbolic washing of the feet, recalling Jesus Christ's act of humanity and service when he washed the feet of his disciples during the Last Supper. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download the app right now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.